What's up, everybody? This is Bill Mack here with TNA WrapUp for May 17th, 2016. Very good show on TNA Impact on PopTv. If you don't get a chance to watch it for whatever reason, just come to my channel. You come to the right place. I give, usually every week, I give a detailed and very detailed description of my opinions of what happened on the episode. That way, if you miss it, you at least get an idea of what happened on it. The beginning of the show shows Bobby Lashley and Drew Galloway arriving at the arena tonight for the main event for the TNA World Title. These guys get together in the back. They basically start brawling with each other, and they just can't wait until the end of the night. So it's just so much competitive fire between the both of them. They get together as it is. The beginning of the show, after that, cut back from commercial, we see Willow making his way to the ring, and he is talking about, it's kind of weird because Willow interfered last week in Jeff Hardy's match. Now, as we all remember, Willow is an idea, and it's the alter ego of Jeff Hardy. Willow was created from that. It spawned from Jeff Hardy. But it was kind of interesting to see Willow out there while Jeff Hardy is in the ring. And so we see this week, Willow comes to the ring, makes a point about how he's free, and he doesn't fear anyone. Well, about that time that he's talking, Jeff Hardy's music hits. Jeff Hardy makes his way to the ring. Now, Jeff Hardy is very upset because he knows, hey, I'm Willow. I'm the one that created the alter ego of Willow. You're a phony, you're a fake. There's no way you can be Willow. And he asks his creatures, do you want me to expose who this guy is, pretending to be Willow? And they're going to get behind Jeff and say, yeah. So what happens is a quick match breaks out. And really, it's not very much of a match to me. It doesn't take very long, kind of like a little squash. And Jeff ends up pinning Willow. And as he is going to take the mask off, out of nowhere from behind, there is another, yet again, Willow that attacks him from behind and hits Jeff from behind, and Jeff goes down. So these two Willows can continue to beat on Jeff and double team him. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we see another Willow appearing up at the ramp at the top of the stage, and he is now talking and talking smack to Jeff Hardy. And as we see him coming down, and we're getting in our mind, who is this guy that is pretending to be Willow? Who is this guy that, because Willow is supposed to be Jeff Hardy. He has the same voice and everything, but as he gets into the ring and he's talking, he reveals himself, he takes the mask off, and lo and behold, it's Matt Hardy. Now, as you know, Matt Hardy, hadn't seen Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy was really upset at Jeff, and he says, look, Jeff, you didn't finish the job, what you started. You didn't do it at all. And so, as we see him looking at Jeff, who after he gets done talking, Jeff is laying on the mat. And so what he does is he looks at, he said that he was telling Jeff how Jeff loved Willow more than him, how, he was so obsessed with this Willow, and he let that come between him and his brother and as brothers, and just all kinds of foolish stuff, as we see. And it just was giving him adding fuel to the fire of this rivalry between the two brothers, as we've seen happen, over the last few weeks. And so as he sees Jeff lying on the ground, he's not finished yet. He goes up and he grabs Jeff, and he basically chokes Jeff out. And what he does is, when he gets done, is when he lets Jeff go, he says, he tells the fans and the creatures, says, look, everything ends. Even the indestructible Jeff Hardy does. And so we see that, and Jeff Hardy is passed out in the middle of the ring. So very, very, very interesting to begin the night off in TNA to see that happen. So we know something's going to be happening. Jeff's going to have something to say about that, but we'll find out more about that later on. Up next, we see Velvet Sky. Now, this is pretty weird to me, this angle. Velvet's shown in the back, and she is looking around for Maria. And so she can't find Maria, so she runs into, we find out to be Maria's assistant. Maria's assistant says Maria doesn't have time to talk to you, but she does tell you that you have a match tonight, and you're going to have a match with none other than Sienna. So we see Sienna is actually the enforcer of Maria's. So, and trust me, she's a good-sized woman. I mean, she really is. And I can see why she would be Maria's enforcer. So she says, oh yeah, Velvet. Maria said, if you lose against Sienna, then you know what? You're fired. And Velvet looks at her like, I'm fired? But, and my opinion on that is, I think that's a bad plot line. We all know that, that Velvet was leaving the company. But to have this kind of a storyline where it's just blown off that much, and it's really not, to me, it's not marketed or it's not promoted good enough from the announcers and how big of a deal this is, Kind of like a slap on the hand, kind of like a walk through the door. It doesn't seem out of the ordinary, and it's like it's a normal match rather than being promoted and saying, hey, this is one of her knockouts. This is one of the beautiful people, and if she loses, she's out. This is a big deal, especially with me, which I like Velvet Sky to begin with. She's my favorite TNA knockout. Sad for me to say. It's sad for me to see her, go out like this, but this is the way they did it. So we see them cut to commercial, and we see Dixie Carter talking, and Dixie is talking about how about the earlier footage between Galloway and Lashley fighting and brawling in the back when they first came in at the beginning of the show. She says that it's just anticipation. She says that how that everybody's anticipating it, and it's affecting everybody backstage with it because of all that's going on, the back and forth that's going on between the Destroyer, Bobby Lashley, the challenger, and the TNA World Champion, Drew Galloway. So she says, what we're going to do is this isn't just going to be some TNA World title match. This is going to be a Lumberjack TNA World title match. So we're going to have Lumberjacks all around the ring tonight to keep things in the ring and to keep it where it won't get out of hand, so that it'll be a match like it should be, And I was like, okay, I can kind of understand that. You have these guys do this. You have them basically brawling, and it's getting out of hand, and it's affecting everybody. So why not have everybody there to kind of keep it in order and keep it in check? So we kind of understand that, and we're like, okay, so this sets the tone for tonight's matchup. So we see out next, we see Velvet Sky making her way to the ring. Yet again, poor and lousy promoting of this match. Should have been a lot more promoting for it, because it is her last match. This is her win or fired match. Win or you don't have a job in TNA anymore match, and yet they failed to provide for it. So very sad in its own, but like I said, that's TNA for you. The lack of creative is their issue, and until they can get better creative, then you're going to see a lot of sloppiness, as I feel like, or lack of of acknowledgement in this situation. So the match starts on as we see Sienna begins the offensive, and she is using every bit of her strength, and she dominates at the beginning of the match. And we see Velvet throughout the match, three different things, trying to basically mount some kind of offense against Sienna. But in the end, it's Sienna hits her move on her, and that's it. 1, 2, 3, and that's over with. And we see Velvet Sky is no longer a part of TNA. So it comes back from commercial. We see the Miracle Mike Bennett sitting along poolside, talking about his future and the future of what he wants in TNA. And it's showing Maria, and she's very beautiful, and she's walking along the pool, and we see her take a jump and dive into the pool, and bring the sex appeal to it. And but she's looking gorgeous, though. Very beautiful woman. And Mike is talking about how he's going to, when he wins the world title, he's going to be the longest reigning TNA champion, and how much of a future TNA Hall of Famer is what he's going to be. Very big talk for him, and this kind of foreshadows what's going to happen next, as we see when we cut back to the TNA, TNA zone, or whatever you want to call it. And we see that Maria's at the beginning. She has her mic, and she's talking. And getting Mike Miracle Bennett to come down to the ring, and she's talking about how great he is and how the future's bright and everything, and needing a miracle. And you know, he takes the mic and he says, "Look," he says, "While I'm here," he says, "I know a lot of fans don't believe in me, don't believe in a miracle." And the fans started cheering loud, and he says, "I know the fans don't, but I also know that EC3 doesn't as well." And you know, he talks about, you know, he says, I want to talk to a TNA Hall of Famer. And, you know, he says, there's not many active on the roster, but I want one to come out. So, you know, I'm trying to think back, who is he talking about? You know, it's not Sting, it's not none of the other guys, because most of the other guys are back in their other promotion. But, so it ends up being Earl Hebner. Earl Hebner is the only active one that's left, and we know Earl Hebner got elected in as a referee, which rightfully so he should be. He's been a referee for years. So he comes out to the ring, and you know, Mike Bennett is just berating him, putting him down, talking junk to him. He's saying, "Look, I want you to hit me. Just hit me." And he antagonizes and angers Earl enough that Earl ends up hitting him. And we see Mike laughs at it. And he's like, and because he calls Earl Hebner's son to come out there, and he's arguing with Earl Hebner's son, and he wants, "Look, I want you to ring the bell. Ring the bell." So after Earl Hebner hits Mike Bennett, Earl Hebner's son rings the bell. And in one punch, Mike Bennett knocks out Earl Hebner. Poor Earl Hebner laying in the ring. And Earl's son is telling him, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. You know, this ain't something you have to do." And so he goes over, he says, "I want you to count to 3. So he leans over and just flops over Earl Hebner to pin him. And Earl and his son goes to count 2. And when he goes to count to 3, Earl throws his shoulder up and arm up. And everybody's in amazement looking around like, wow. Earl Hebner is he actually not kicked out of it, but he broke up the count and 2 count, 3 count. His shoulder come up on the count of 2. Everybody's in shock, and they were cheering for Earl. So Earl makes it up, and he gets mad, and you know how Earl does when he gets angry. And what you see is Earl is Maria's kind of fussing with and arguing with Earl on one side of the ring, while Earl's son is trying to talk Michael Bennett, you know, on the other side of the ring. Well, Michael Bennett ends up, and he kicks Earl Hebner right in the face. And I mean, clean kick, no doubt about it, puts you on the mat kind of kick. Puts him down and kicks him square in the face. 1, 2, 3. We see that 3 count happen. And, you know, it was just terrible to see that happen. You know, and he was about, and so just when you think it's over, EC3 basically comes out there. And EC3 is looking at Mike and says, "Why'd you leave? Why'd you, you know, come on. Why'd you leave? You're going to pick on Earl Hebner, but you can't come in here and pick on me." And, you know, Mike is out there and telling him and talking to EC3. He says, "Look, you got lucky last week. You know, you defeated Rockstar Spud because we all know that they're hyping this as the road to redemption. EC3 to get his rematch against Mike the Miracle Bennett." So he says, "You're still on the road. You defeated Rockstar Spud last week in a 6 Sides of Steel, but tonight you're going to have a bigger distraction." And as he says that, out of nowhere, Tyrus comes and nails EC3 in the back. And then he says, "Oh yeah, by the way, your match against him is now, and this is a last man standing match. So we'll see how big of a test this is going to be, EC3, for you." And we all know last standing matches, what the object is, for those who may not, is that the wrestlers are fighting each other, and what has to happen is one guy has to defeat his opponent and just beat him down, that so that he is not able to answer a 10 count, a standing 10 count. He has to be up for 10, and if he doesn't, then the person that does it wins. So this would give Tyrus against EC3. So we all see, wow, that's a big test for him. You know, and it was just amazing to me. It was a good, decent match, the last standing match, where there was a lot going on. different things happening in this match. A lot of getting up on 9 and getting up, as you see. EC3 has a uphill battle to go, because from the onset of the match, when Tyrus attacked him, Tyrus was basically using his strength and his size to outmaneuver EC3, and then EC3 kind of picked up the pace a little bit. He kind of got to where he could mount some offense, and he could overcome. And then you've seen a lot of backwards and forwards things. You've seen Tyrus using his strength. You've seen EC3 jump off the top. A few high spots for EC3 in this matchup. Good matchup with Tyrus, and you see he hits Tyrus repeatedly with the chairs, but Tyrus gets up. And Tyrus goes, he gets up, and then when he tries to pick up Tyrus and get him to fall across these two chairs, seats that are side by side with each other, Tyrus ends up back suplexing him, German suplexing him on the top of those chairs. So we know that's going to hurt between both of them, but he ends up getting up. And then we see that what Tyrus does is he ends up trying to choke EC3 and choke the air out of him, and EC3 gets up from that on an 8 count, and then as he's going out, Tyrus ends up taking and ripping the ring. He gets outside the ring, and he takes his thumb, which they call the ICU, and it's all taped up, and he jabs his thumb into the throat of EC3. And he hits the IC3 on him, and it basically takes the air out of him. If you don't know what that'll do, a thumb to the throat, it'll take the air out of you real quick like. And they will end up, both of them on the outside, both of them doing reverses, and Tyrus ends up, he goes outside, and while they're outside, and while EC3 is down, he goes outside and rips up one of the steel railings that is there to keep the fans back, and literally rips it up off the hinges, and he puts it out there. And he goes to take EC3 and put EC3 through it, but EC3 ends up and gets Tyrus on his back long enough, hits a Samoan drop on him, and it ends up breaking it in half. And so we see that Tyrus ends up trying to get up, but EC3, what he does is something smart. While Tyrus is down, he takes the steel steps, picks him up, hits him twice across the head with it, and then he goes out and takes the chairs while the steel steps are sitting on him, and takes the chairs and hits him 2 or 3 times with that. And if that's not enough, what he does is he takes his foot as he's standing up on the edge of the mat, and he's holding on the ropes to keep him from going over, and he's literally standing on it. So now you have EC3 standing on the chair, which is on top of the steps, which is on top of the railing of Tyrus, and the referee counts to 10. There's your match. Tyrus wasn't able to get up and make the 10 count, so here we have your winner of this match. We have EC3. Very interesting match, and we see that Mike is standing up there on the at the top of the ramp, really not knowing what to say. Wasn't clapping, wasn't cheering, but it was kind of like you could see in his mind he's thinking, "Wow, this man's tough. To go through all that, he's going to be a tough challenge." Is what my thinking was. He was thinking in that matchup. So we cut to a vignette, and it's showing Bobby Lashley training for the match. And I mean, Bobby Lashley works out hard. Bobby Lashley is a strong man. I mean, he ought to be. I think he's in Bellator and in the MMA fighting as well, along with TNA. So we saw him training and everything, and it was a good promo. Good thing to see him. I like seeing those promos when they show him at the gym working out, and it looks like they're really getting prepared for their matchup. So we cut away from that, and it shows Jeff Hardy. He's still, pretty much like he's his throat, and he's talking, and he's letting his creatures know that he's like, Matt Hardy is going crazy, and he's talking about Matt, and he said, look, all this craziness and stuff that Matt's been going through and all these things, I will avenge the creatures, and I will, and when this ends, we're going to make sure it ends at Slammiversary. So, looks like we have a matchup between the Hardy brothers at Slammiversary coming up. So we come back and we see Gregory Helms leading the Helms Dynasty out, and they're taking on Eddie Edwards and DJZ, and so that means Davey Richards is still out, and so we see that it's Helms Dynasty against Eddie Edwards. And remember, a few weeks back, he offered Eddie Edwards to join the Helms Dynasty and tag with Trevor Lee. But remember, he turned it down because, he was waiting on David Richards, and because the fact, too, is he realized that, Eddie Edwards still has that tag team championship title match from the Feast or Fire briefcase that he has that can be used. And Eddie saw right through that, remember? So we see this guy, DJZ. He must be from Japan, but he's a good wrestler. This was a good matchup, and we see that a lot of the times that DJZ took most of the match, and he played the guy to take most of the beat down, and it went back and forth. Pretty good match, some high spots in this, and then when it seems like they're down, DJZ finally makes the tag to Eddie Edwards, and Eddie Edwards pretty much clears out and wipes out both of the Helms Dynasty, and he ends up picking up the win in the matchup. So overall, it was a decent match. Some high spots in it. Good to see Eddie Edwards back in tag team match, and good to see DJZ too. Looks like it'll be a force to reckon with in TNA until Davey Richards can get back. So that was pretty good. And then they showed the replay of Velvet Sky losing and being fired from in her match against Sienna, and she's talking to she gives a little interview, and she says that she's basically telling her farewell and goodbyes to basically all of her fans, and that she hates leaving the show, and she saw that her fans were sad, and she says no matter what, TNA will always be called her home, and that they will always be her family, and she eventually thanks all of her fans, and she loves her fans, and that was basically the end of it. So we see that happen, and it was a decent decent send off, but at least she got to tell her fans how she felt before. We come back, and just like last year, we see now a vignette of Drew Galloway, and it shows him winning the title, and it shows him training just like it did Lashley for this matchup. So TNA is doing a good job with hyping their championship matchup like that, going through those vignettes. I like when they do things like that. It's more creative when you show the realism in it in their training like that to show their athletes, and it gives more of a meaning than just simply a package sometimes. So I really enjoyed seeing that. Up next, and I like this guy. Up next, we see Eli Drake. And remember, I've had a kind of a high thing for Eli Drake here. Eli Drake has his own show now. So not only is WWE into their own shows, TNA Superstar has his own show. And it's funny. It's called The Facts of Life. And basically what I'm seeing that Eli Drake does is basically he insults the fans, and he has this button that's called the I think it's the dummy button, and he every time he hits the dummy button, and it goes off, and it's just so funny because he insults everybody. I mean, he really does. And he's sitting there, he's picking on different people in the crowd, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Bram's music hits. Now, Bram, mind you, defeated Eric Young to win the, Bram is now he's the King of the Mountain champion. And Bram says, he's telling him, oh, look at you, look how weird you're looking over here at me like this. And Bram's like, yeah. He's pointing to his belt, and he says, yeah, I seen you looking at this too. But he says, and then, yeah, I do see your briefcase. But that very briefcase is dangerous. But the man who's holding it isn't. And I was like, oh, he's trying to talk some smack to Eli Drake, And Eli's, look, there's two ways we can handle this. Either I can go and beat you to a bloody pulp. I can take you down. I can and beat you down and end up taking that TNA title, King of the Mountain title away from you, or you can be man enough to just to hand it to me, and let me have it. And, you know, Bram's like, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. You think I'm just going to hand it over? He said, no way I'm not going to do that. And then Eli gets mad, and he's like, oh, well, this show's over with. Like, he really thought that was going to happen. So we see that he gets out the ring, then he hops back in the ring. Bram starts wailing on him, throwing a few punches in him, but then he ends up, the briefcase falls, and he ends up grabbing a briefcase. Eli does, and he skirts out of the ring and leaves, taking his briefcase with him. So, and he was like, yeah, I'll cash it, I'll cash this Fisher Fire in, but not right now. So he was trying to tease like he was going to cash it in, but we know he's not going to do that. So he cut the break, come back, and we see EC3, and he's coming up behind Miracle Mike Bennett and Maria as they're going in the door. And he's trying to talk to him. He says, oh, look, I'm ready for a rematch. I just beat Tyrus. I beat Rockstar Spud. And what Mike says is, look, while on the road to redemption, you've done it. But he says, but you still got one more challenge that you have to do. And he says, and if you just happen to get that, then I'll think about giving you a rematch. And you want to know what that one more challenge is? And he says, who? And he says, none other than Matt Hardy. And that is the guy that beat EC3 for the title. Remember, with the help of Brodus Clay. I mean, not I got on Brodus Clay. I mean, Tyrus. I'm still stuck on that name, Brodus Clay. That was a good name he had. But as we see it, you know, so we see another matchup made for next week. Pretty good matchup. Looks like it's going to be. I like EC3. He's a good guy, cool superstar. So now, folks, we see that coming up is none other than the main event. This is for the Lumberjack World Title between Bobby Lashley, the Destroyer, and the champion Drew Galloway. And then from the beginning of the match, Lashley goes on attack mode. He's dishing out. And I'll tell you what, folks, Drew can take a lot of pain. Drew in the beginning couldn't put up a whole lot of offense against Lashley. Lashley, with that background that he has and takedowns and get him in the corner and just that brute strength that Lashley has, just was a lot for him to overcome in the very beginning. But as all champions do, and like Rocky used to be, could take a lot of punishment, he mounts his own comeback. So we see that during this time, and this was a full, folks, this was a full match in its own, because we see that even when Galloway would try to fight and make a comeback, you know, he was always answered back by Lashley. Lashley would just overpower him and end up bringing him back down again. So as we see this happening, while this happens in the ring, all of a sudden Drew is at a point where he's going to do that kick that he does, and as he's sitting in the corner, Lashley's down. Lashley's getting ready to get up, and he's just laying there and waiting. He's just ready for it. And before he can pull it off, the Lumberjacks all of a sudden grab Drew Galloway's legs, pull him out of the ring, and start jumping on him and attacking him. About that time, all you know what come down. And now all the stars are battling outside. Everybody's battling now. That's on the outside, which we knew was just people feuding. The champions that are the people that are challengers that were fighting. And it was just amazing to me how this happened. But we see a bunch of spots like we see Robbie E come out. Robbie E does a spot where he jumps out, lands on top of a crowd of wrestlers. It was pretty cool to see that. And then we see Trevor Lee after he does it. Trevor Lee has to go and do it. He does it on a crowd of wrestlers. And then we see Eddie Edwards climb to the top. Now he's getting ready to do something. But what happens is he ends up, and Trevor Lee comes by, knocks his legs, gets him off. So then Trevor Lee gets on the middle rope, and he's going to suplex Eddie Edwards into the ring. Well, what happens instead of that happening, it's amazing because then Eddie Edwards comes and he reverses that suplex and he ends up suplexing Trevor Lee outside into another crowd of wrestlers, and they caught him, and it was just amazing to me because you don't ever see somebody get suplexed on the outside, so you know you had to have a certain amount of people to do that. So of course they all caught him and stuff, and then Trevor Lee goes and does after he gets suplexed. We see Matt come out, and he pulls Jeff from the top, and you know, and it's not, it's just amazing to me how that happens. But it was just final to see them go through the matchup, and to me it was just, you know, kind of seeing those two on top, and Jeff's going to hit a Swanton bomb, but then he goes off and hits that. He was going to hit the Swanton bomb, but then Matt comes out and he pulls Jeff from the top rope, and he ends up trying to hit Lashley with the Swanton. Then EC3 comes out after all that debacle comes out, and he chases away Mike the Miracle, and then we see one after the other hitting their moves. Drew Galloway ends up finally hitting a kick on Lashley, and then he ends up diving over after that on a crowd of people as well. So it was just amazing to see all that happen in the matchup. So we all know it was going to be a disqualification, a DQ after this happened, and to me it was just kind of a ruin. I know what they were trying to do and everybody doing their spots, but you know, they had made a big deal out of this matchup from the very beginning and everything, and to ruin it like that, I would have waited till at least after that. But that's what basically how it ended, was where Drew ended up being the one to stand alone after doing all types of moves on during this matchup. But overall, you know, folks, it was a good show. Enjoyed it. I would have loved to see it finally end or the match keep on. But I guess that's when you have a DQ like that, what can you only do but bring it over into another matchup between them. So overall, pretty good TNA Impact. Few things that we saw happen over this week as it happened. TNA was happy to announce that Jesse Goddard's has been recently re-signed, as we saw, as well as Crazy Steve got re-signed, and Robbie E. So we see them finally announcing some re-signs instead of basically everybody leaving, you know. And like I said, they're still having money troubles, though, so this news may not always be good news. It's TNA news, and I wanted to try to add a little TNA news in with the broadcast since it wasn't as long. But I'm trying to keep it as detailed as I can without just dragging it out for an hour or two. I think I can kind of keep it down below that. And I think some people wouldn't mind a shorter, sweeter, but detailed TNA report rather than an hour long to drag it out. But, you know, we see Caleb and Connolly and Sienna, which we saw them basically, her making an immediate impact on TNA as well. So, you know, glad to see those make their impacts too. My man Eli Drake got signed to a new contract this week as well. Great to see that. Good to see him having good talent like that. Now they need to keep up with this, and I know that their money is, you know, they're having a time with it, but good to see them actually re-sign. Also, another re-sign this week is Tigre Uno re-signs with the company. Another, another Ultimate X Division guy. Good to see that and getting him signed out because he's a good talent. Good to see him on TNA and having them re-sign. And we see that the pay-per-view for June is when basically Slammiversary starts, where everything's going to end up June 12th. Sunday, June 12th is what's going to happen, and then we'll see what happens from the fallout of it on that following episode on the of TNA Impact on Tuesday, June 14th. So we see now when the Slammiversary is going to happen. Ready to see it. We do see, however, some, like I said, not always news is news. Good news. TNA still, once again, is still having problems paying their employees. And this has been going on for a while now because they're not getting the investors yet. They've not sold the company yet. And it says here, and it mentions that they've been behind on paying staff and work even from the January and March tapings when they tape their shows. And it said that the Harrison twins and their company was supposed to be paying that and paying them out. That's where their outside source of income's coming from, because they haven't yet got an investor to come in and take over the company, which I'm looking forward to it at any time. I'm ready for them to rebrand and revitalize TNA. It can be done. You just got to get everything in cement. You got to have everybody signed exclusively push the merchandise, because TNA's had to move their headquarters, their merchandising and stuff, and that shouldn't have to happen. We want to see a viable alternative to WWE. It may not be on that level, but just something different to watch, and it'll be great if they could just get things back. But, you know, they've been looking to gain investor here, and it's their only main source of revenue right now that they're having is their deal with PopTv and their international TV deals, and the one night only pay-per-views in the U.S. that they have. But that's it as of right now, and they told them that they were going to have to basically they said that some of the workers, production people, have been met with resistance too, so they probably haven't been getting paid either as of late, or been late getting paid. And they told them that there's chances that it could be, they could be even replaced when they start the June taping. So that's something to watch out for. Maybe they can get back on track. I would love to see them be able to have that happen, But as we know in this and these days and times, it's hard funding, and unless you get someone that really knows what they're doing, that's going to be the issue. So I just figured I would drop off a few headlines for you, a few signings and stuff. I'll try to do this each week, more of a condensed, smaller edition of TNA Wrap-Up, but it will be basically detailed as much as I can make it, and give you some TNA news as well that's happened up until the midweek or Thursday, just depending on when I release the video. So I hope everyone has a great night. Like I said, if you like this video, drop a like. If you want to continue more content of TNA or WWE, Team B and I do, Team B, remember Bullet B and I do Team B Wrestling Show. For Raw, I do TNA's Impact Wrap-Up. Come drop, just subscribe to my channel. Go check his channel out. He has a lot of content. Bullet B, and look him up. He's got a lot of issues and stuff on his channel, topics and things he discusses, and give his opinion too. So with that in closing, until next week, with next week's TNA Wrap-Up, this is Bill Mack here, and take care. TNA forever. Peace out.